We've lost close to 50% of the search data from Google. How do we guide our sites when our window is fogged up? Learn about a recent study that shows how much of the road we can't see anymore today on The Edge.
Go! Your weekly digital marketing trends with industry trend-setting guests. Powered by your digital marketing pioneers, Site Strategics. This week's featured guest is Patrick Stox, Product Advisor, Technical SEO, and Brand Ambassador at Ahrefs. Now, here's your host, Aaron Sparks.
Welcome back to The Edge. This is Edge of the Web Radio. I'm your host, Aaron Sparks, owner of Site Strategics. For over 10 years, we've interviewed amazing guests to chat about digital marketing trends and tactics. Every week, we unpack a key marketing topic for our digital marketing audience. So whether or not you're part of an agency, a freelancer, or part of a firm, this show is for you. Be sure to check out all the recent shows over at edgeofthewebradio.com. This interview podcast is sponsored by Site Strategics. We're proud to have Site Strategics as the title sponsor of Edge of the Web. Focused on SEO, SEM, and conversion rate optimization, our digital marketing team is excellent at results-based marketing that works. We'll talk a little bit more about what we do during the show, but make sure you check us out over at sitestrategics.com. Just want to let you know who will be coming up on the show. Over the next few episodes, we're going to be talking to Olga Zarzeczna, Tim Schmoyer, Dawn Anderson, and Barry Adams. Make sure you check out some of the recent shows as well of Norm Vogley as well as Bill Hartzer. If you're interested in being part of the show, just drop us a line over at info@edgeofthewebradio.com. Set your reminders to YouTube to get notified whenever we post those videos as well. Hey, make sure that you give us a review on iTunes. If you like what you hear on this show, go over to ratethispodcast.com/edge today to be able to give us a review of either this show or the show as a whole, because that's how the algorithm works, and you can let us know how we're doing. Make sure you check out also the weekly news podcast covering all the recent marketing news as well as Google updates. We're dropping it every Monday to help you navigate your week in digital marketing. Continued co-host on the show is the indomitable Maury Oberstein. So check that out. And if anything, just to rubberneck and see what kind of trouble we get into with him on the air. All right. So that's that for our housekeeping. Now let's meet this week's industry expert. All right, let's introduce you to Patrick Stox. He's a product advisor, technical SEO, and brand ambassador at Ahrefs. He works out of Raleigh, North Carolina. He's known as Mr. Technical SEO. And Patrick was a judge for the 2017 U.S. Search Awards, the 2017 UK Search Awards, and the 2018 Interactive Marketing Awards. We've interviewed him over at SMX in 2020 before the world shut down. Be sure to check out that show over at edgeofthewebradio.com. Welcome to the show, Patrick.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to see you again. It's been a hot moment since we last talked. Anything happened since then?
We were in person then. That's a little rare now.
It is. But we had a good sit down back in SMX, and certainly appreciate what you're doing over at Ahrefs. For our audience that doesn't know you, shame on them. But can you give us a brief history of how you got into the role of the brand ambassador over at Ahrefs?
Oh, I'm pretty sure I got my job because I was posting on Reddit. Might be the best story ever. Our CMO, Tim, he posts for feedback on the big SEO subreddit every couple years.
Sure.
And they really liked my feedback. They shared it with the team. And next thing I know, they're like, do you want to come work for us? And I'm like, maybe. I was pretty content. I was with IBM at the time.
Yeah. First and foremost, you got to make sure that this isn't a prank, right? So you got to vet out if it's a response on Reddit. You got to make sure that somebody's not trolling you.
Well, he messaged me on Twitter, so it's pretty legit. He's got one of those blue check marks and everything.
Okay, the coveted blue check marks. Okay, so you knew it was for real. So how long ago was this?
Oh, that was 2019.
Yeah.
Maybe. I think I officially started in October 2019.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Of course, you'd know that. Though I remember talking to you, and you just actually taken on the mantle of brand ambassador whenever we met last.
Yeah, it was interesting. Like basically, I was like, "Well, what do y'all want me to do?" And they're like, "Oh, like here's all this stuff. Like, and like, what do you want to do?" So I kind of wrote a job description, and they're like, "Yeah, that sounds good." And I'm like, "All right."
Wow. All right. And all this came from, folks, a Reddit posting. Not one, but a few. And you're certainly giving some good feedback out there. So you're known as Mr. Technical SEO, and you have given us a lot in the field of analysis on search, especially with knowing that Ahrefs is a really substantial ability for a website audit, as well as a huge amount of data to be able to preen through when it comes down to queries and keywords and trends. I mean, we're a huge fan of Ahrefs. Obviously, they've sponsored our show before, but we're an active client of theirs. Watching the data through the software there. So it's always evolving, and there's some really cool tools that are in there. How's the culture over at Ahrefs? Because, I mean, there's a big team there, and I certainly know that Tim's also from Ukraine, and there's been a huge focus on supporting Ukraine and bringing awareness to the war that's there, right?
Yeah, the company was founded in Ukraine originally, and the main office is now in Singapore, but we definitely have a lot of employees that are in Ukraine or were in Ukraine. Some have actually gone back if they're in more of the Western parts. That's been hard and sad, I would say, but the culture in general is great. Like everyone's super supportive. Dimitri, the owner, was basically like, anything y'all need, like you need out, like we'll fly in a helicopter if you need it, like whatever it takes, like we'll come get you. People were like helping find flats, apartments, places for people to stay. Like it was really great.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. Tim was dedicated to be able to showcase what's going on there. And it sounded like the entire company just rallied around every one of the employees. So incredible kudos for that. And we certainly continue to wish the best for the employees at Ahrefs. Yeah, you guys have some stellar people over there, and they also give you a lot of latitude whenever you're sharing information to the SEO community. And that's what we wanted to get you on board and talk about. A recent study that you published. You spent a good deal of time, a month's worth of data, doing an analysis, which is also being embraced and discussed in a number of conversations in the SEO circles on social media. So you and Ahrefs released a study representing almost 150,000 websites and nearly 9 billion, with a B, total clicks for 1 month of data. You studied Google Search Console, and the clicks reported from the console were incredibly different from the click data that's available from the API calls. Long story short, and we're certainly going to unpack this, but what you discovered was basically there's about 46% of clicks hidden from the Google Search Console user as it applies to clickable queries. Can you unpack that for us a little bit more?
Yeah, it's basically there's a lot of terms that people are searching that are just not being reported in Search Console. And that makes up, as you said, a total of on average 46% of the clicks. But it like varies across every single website, across all kinds of sites.
And there's no rhyme or reason. There's no pattern that you were able to discern, right?
No, because I went looking.
I bet you did.
So we knew that, I mean, like this has sort of been a known issue that like not all the data is there. But I think what's surprised people more than anything is how much data is missing. I honestly, when I started this, I kind of expected 15%, 20% maybe, not almost half the data just not really being reported.
And that's amazing. It's just for users that maybe haven't experienced Search Console. Google Search Console is a free service that Google provides that gives you insight into your search visibility online from Google. Obviously, it's just reporting its own data and visibility, but it also gives you technical insight into potential impediments for search, ranking, and visibility. But the UI of Search Console is where everybody goes to be able to interact. And what you're saying is that we're missing a lot of data. The API connection that you have pulls in a good deal more, and you were able to show that discrepancy. And you pointed out in the article, and we're going to have the show notes with a number of links from this show. Your study, almost half of GSE clicks go to hidden terms, a study by Ahrefs. As on June 24th, you actually pointed out a number of different variations. 2 sites with traffic from 60 million to 100 million clicks was showing one at 2.27% discrepancy, almost all of their data there. And then another that had 90.3% of the terms hidden, respectively. I mean, how in the world can you make sense of that? I mean, well, first and foremost, you picked 150,000 sites. How'd you go about picking those?
That's just the data we have access to. You know, people that connect through the Connect Search Console through Ahrefs, Ahrefs Webmaster Tools, for instance.
Right.
So we just chose 1 month of data to look at, but we could have picked like many more months.
Oh, sure. Yeah. But without any type of demographics, certain industries, you went deep into 150,000 sites.
It was pretty much the data that we had access to. The only thing that we did was where people have multiple properties for the same site, we like flattened that data. So like just treat it as one website.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, we didn't look at anything like a breakdown of type of sites because I didn't want to spend time classifying that. It was more maybe in a future study.
Yeah.
The only thing I really pulled was the various like TLD, CCTLD, and the rest of the data around the clicks.
So the report that you've got here, many of the sites are missing about half their data. That's the big bell curve. But a large number of sites, like I said, are missing almost all of their data. And this is the query click data. It's not the page click data that it can be seen in the UI. And that's relatively, as I'm reading the reports and the commentary, that's actually somewhat clear of discrepancies. Am I correct there, or am I off?
Yeah, I would say in GSE, your total clicks, totally fine.
Yep.
Clicks to a page, totally fine. It is literally the sum of the clicks to all the terms just don't add up. You got a page with 1,000 clicks and you got one term showing that's 100. Well, what happened to those other 900 clicks? Like, what were those searches? It's just not there.
It's just not there. So you mentioned in the report that Google gives some reasons for this. Privacy and possibly queries were made on a small number of times, but you said you doubt that many are actually privacy, though that leaves a lot of long tail queries that Google is not exposing to website owners and SEOs. And that's distressing to say the least, because we're talking about the scenario of steerage, and we need to use Google Search Console to be able to see performance as we make different changes, because there's not only click performance, also impression performance, and everything else under the sun that Google Search Console can report to us. But if we can see it in one area, but then we go into another area and we're completely blind, right? I mean, this has a parallel to back in 2011 when we lost all the query data out of Google Analytics, right?
Yeah. Since this came out too, they updated documentation. They gave another reason, and that was basically that they're just not storing all the data. Okay. It's like they're I guess have some kind of a cutoff, but it's interesting to me because I don't know if I really believe that or not. Because when I look back into some of my own properties, I'm like, in the last 16 months, I've got some terms in there with literally one click and one impression. So I'm like, well, what is this cutoff?
Wow.
So I'm like, I'm not sure I believe that. So I think there might be a bigger issue with how they're anonymizing the data. Mm-hmm. But this is going to be really interesting and frustrating to try and figure out, I think, what actually is missing. Because I'm like, if there's literally something with one search and one impression and one click, and that's stored and that's shown to me, what is missing? Like, what could possibly be missing?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and we were told whenever we lost all of the query data and got it turned into not provided inside of analytics, that they were focusing us over to Google Search Console to be able to see that, because it was a privacy thing and it was also an anti-manipulation effort of Google to make sure that SEOs weren't affecting their visibility. There was a lot of manipulation back then, and we'll fast forward past those days. But the point being is that they took it away. They said, all right, pay attention over at Google Search Console. That's what your data is going to be. And now we're seeing that there's a heck of a lot of things gone. You actually put some graphs in the report here, and I want to be able to go through a couple of these real quick. The first graph that you pulled up was a scatter plot graph. Go ahead and pull that up for us, Jacob. And for those of you listening on the podcast, go over to the YouTube show, and we actually have everything being moved through on the charts, as well as our interview if you haven't come across us before. So check that out, and we'll certainly again reference everything on the show notes. But you've got a breakdown of a lot of sites here, and you're pointing out one in particular that has 1 million clicks, where, like you said, 90% of the data is just missing. Give us a little bit of a more of an expose on this particular chart here, sir.
Yeah, that's actually 100 million clicks.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That
Yeah. 100 million. Whoops.
90% of their data is missing.
God.
I would fully suspect maybe that site is like in a medical niche or something. Again, I didn't actually look into that. But yeah, the main purpose of this chart was just to show the distribution that is different for every single site, basically.
Right. No, it's nuts. And there's a couple of different significant points, but the second chart that you rolled through was a histogram. And that was actually really interesting. It almost shows the bell curve here of the amount of sites that are missing a certain percentage of their query clicks. And you can see in the video here that the mountain starts right around 30% to 70%, peaking at around 45% of loss, like you're saying in your report. Man, that's a lot of sites that just don't have that data available. Again, without categorization of sites here, what are we really seeing? Why would we, can you even hypothesize why? I mean, it can't be long tail. It cannot be. I mean, long tail is inherently low yield, low volume. Google's asking us to believe that all these domains have close to 50% long tail queries for those to be removed, right?
And if you think about that, if it's long tail or just one or two searches or something like that, how many queries does that have to be?
Yeah, what's the threshold?
I mean, to make up 50% of the total clicks, that is absolutely bonkers. But we know they always release a study saying every year 15% of searches have never been seen before.
Right.
Cool. Well, I seem to have some of those shown in my search console, so I'm not really sure what's missing.
Are we even seeing those new searches? Is that now veiled behind our curtain of just disappearing queries? It's like Schrodinger's query, right? Whether or not it's there or not is really about if you're looking at it. So
we tried a lot of different things with this API because we were like, this can't be right.
Wow.
So we're like, maybe it was under load. So we're trying an off time and pull the same data, and it always ended up the same. And then we're like, well, maybe there are certain thresholds. I don't know. We were trying to figure it out. Why is so much data missing? But even other Google systems kind of confirmed that. I pulled it in the data studio and kind of took out all the I summed up the clicks to all the things to show this is the difference versus the total clicks. And someone actually shared on Twitter, I don't remember her name, I'm so bad with names, but she shared that you can basically do the same thing inside Search Console. If you search for a query not containing, and then just smash your hands on the keyboard to make some random thing that your site would never rank for, and you'll get the same kind of numbers. And it's that's interesting.
Yeah, it's suspect. And we've had over at site our own challenges as we are changing between clients, and we are seeing certain data that was literally carrying over from a previous search of a previous domain. And it's actually, very unique, some unique queries, and we shift over to another domain and not turn off that filter. and that data is still there hanging around, and there'd be no way that that domain would be picking up any of that query data. So the functionality of GSC is also kind of in question as well. Jacob, you had some experience there.
Yeah, I was going to say the situation was we were trying to show a client how many impressions they had versus branded impressions.
Right,
so
right.
Here's your raw impressions, and I put ABC Company in and removed it. So remove filter ABC Company.
Mm-hmm.
The impression numbers go down, so we report that.
Sure.
Then I switched to a different client to do the same thing. Hadn't pulled out that filter yet.
Right.
And the minute I pulled out that filter for a completely different company, different industry, their impressions went way up, like doubled. And there's no way that second company even had to. Well, and then when you search for it in the total impressions,
It's not there.
It's not there.
Right. Now think about that. I mean, and that's the UI side of things. We're not pulling it through API, but just switching. There's some functional things in here as well. And if we're trying to rely on GSC as the
Sure.
kind of the paramount value to be able to steer SEO by, I mean, that was duplicated again and again and again.
I could just switch clients all day long. Just leave that ABC Company in there as a negative filter.
Right.
And every company would show a number. And then when you remove that filter, they'd go up.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they even mentioned that in the documentation for it, where if you're doing like a query contains or not contains, basically it's going to filter out all these anonymized queries and stuff. The same thing that we were seeing when we were pulling the data. Yeah. Basically, you got more data as the site got bigger. To a certain point, I don't remember what the cutoff was, like 10 million clicks in a month.
Yep.
Then suddenly the data got a lot worse on average. But yeah, this was basically just broken down into different traffic ranges, which I was kind of looking for patterns when I created this one. So a fun fact, every SEO tool estimates traffic, right?
Sure.
Well, how do we do that? We take a list of known terms. We look at like what we think the click-through rate curves are, et cetera. Mm-hmm. Really cool fact, we model that individually where we have enough data. And then we just add all that up. So if we add all that up, we usually end up with, I think industry studies usually show us that, half or a third of actual traffic.
Sure.
So I was thinking, it was possible if this had been more consistent that we could have fudged that a little bit. Told users, of course, but
right.
If it had been like a consistent like 20, 30, 40% missing across these different ranges, we could have said like, let's put an invisible kind of multiplier on our traffic estimate, which is kind of what's happening in GSC.
True. It's true. Again, just to get back to the baseline, the clicks are still the clicks whenever you're seeing general, right? That's still correct. But as soon as you go into queries, everything's gone. The queries are not there. It's not shared with you. The clicks to those queries are not there. And there's no rhyme, no reason. And like I said, going in and trying to create a pattern out of this, at least having some sort of yield pattern of traffic didn't make sense because it was all over the bloody map, right?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Well, Glenn Gabe posted a tweet referencing your study, and I pulled out a couple comments. One was by David Iwanow talking about Daniel Weisberg, who's a search advocate over at Google, that he shared something in the space that if you're grouping by 3 different dimensions in the API, query, date, and page, you could actually get this elimination of data, very similar to what we're talking about with the UI side of things, but yours is actually even more basic, right?
Yeah, it's anytime. I mean, typically when you're pulling this data, I had to do this 1,000 times at different companies. What every company wants is like keywords per page, in which case you're getting 2 dimensions, and you do end up with a filter where you don't get all the data. And how you usually solve that is you just add some additional like subfolders and subfolders for additional properties, and then you can just get more data per property. But this particular issue doesn't suffer from that issue in Google Search Console.
Right. So you're just reporting queries. You're just pulling queries with clicks, and it just wasn't there.
Right.
So click to pages are accurate, click to terms is the issue here. So Barry Schwartz reported on July 11th and regarding the Google document change. So Google actually removed language in the help doc calling hidden search query data very rare. They actually changed it, and that was made after your study, obviously, about the 50% removal of queries. So as a result, Google on Friday actually updated this help document that had the words anonymized queries that are very rare. Google actually told Barry in Search Engine Land that they clarified their data limits for the report in the help document as well. So that said, they actually changed the word choice. Very rare queries called anonymous queries are not shown in these results to protect the privacy of the user making the query. And they just changed one word. Some queries called anonymous queries are not shown in these results to protect the
Yeah. I mean, they also added a paragraph talking about like they're not storing all the data.
Right.
Which is the part I found fascinating, simply because I know they have the data, but it's possible that Google as a corporation is not actually sharing all of that with the Search Console team, or the Search Console team decided like, we're just not going to store all of this. I mean, that's a decision you have to make as a tool sometimes. Like, you can't store everything. The web's practically infinite. Maybe we need certain cutoffs, or like we need these queries not to run for a certain length of time, or any number of reasons could be why. But for whatever it is, they're just choosing not to store all of it.
Why is that, people? Why is that, Google? Why aren't you storing our data? We need it. But that's not entirely the case, because the clicks are still there. There's data there, right? We just can't see it because it is veiled. All right. So in the study, I want to make sure that everybody sees the link that you have in there to be able to check your own data as well. So you put together a Data Studio template in which you can actually connect to your own Search Console API, and the process is actually pulling in what your total clicks are compared to your query clicks. And that's a great tool, very simple tool to be able to connect and use. Highly recommend you do that. We'll have it in the show notes, but check this out. Search Engine Roundtable used that same tool that you provided, and they saw a 46% discrepancy on terms not available. Search Engine Land did 43%, and Martech, the sister company, had 70% of their queries not available. All right. We actually here at Site ran quickly a couple of our sites. One had 42% loss of queries. Another one had 65% not available. Now, that said, I'm talking to a client today, and we had a call and say, hey, we're not going to be able to navigate from a performance level with query data and query clicks because it's just not there. How do we reconcile that, Patrick? Because that's performance data that it's erroneously removed, right?
Yeah, again, we have no idea what is there. I don't know what privacy they're protecting on. Like, even my personal site, like, what are you blocking my name? No, it's there. Like, I don't understand why like half the stuff is missing still. I think they've got a little explaining to do eventually. But as far as navigating it, I think about the best we can do is just assume that what people are searching is at least similar to other things that people are searching for to reach that page, whether that's, from Google Search Console itself, or Ahrefs or SEMrush, or wherever you get your data. It's probably, I don't know if it really is long tail. Like I originally was like, oh, it's long tail queries. But then when I look, I'm like, oh, this has literally been showed up one time, and someone clicked it in the last 16 months. So like that's there. It's like five words long. And I'm like,
gotcha.
So I don't really know what's missing. It's going to be fun experimenting to try and figure out what does not show when I run some tests.
Absolutely. So you're going to continue this project of digging in here and looking at the data in a number of different ways. Yeah.
I'm always curious, like what could possibly be missing that they're not showing. And I don't know, some local folks have said it's potentially things with like telephone numbers or street names, like something dealing with the business address.
Okay.
I don't know, that definitely doesn't apply like to my personal site. It's missing 50% of the stuff because basically it only ranks for my name. So I don't really know what could be.
We implore our audience, if taking on the challenge of trying to figure out what could that be, what could the patterning be? Because if there is a patterning, and this is the scary part here, is that if there's no rule, if there's no particular set of filters that have been kind of preset by Google not to share that information, if this is just random, or let alone if this is a functionality problem, man, they gotta pay attention to that. Again, this is a free service. We get that, but there's an entire industry that is reliant on that data, right?
Oh yeah.
Well, all right. So, last couple of questions here about the study here. I mean, more and more we're having data taken away from us. And just to quote Barry, we're living in a more private-centric world. We need to be able to adapt and prepare for even less data than our marketing campaigns in the future, says Barry, no matter how much we dislike it. Third-party tools like Ahrefs and SEMrush in conjunction with GSC. Is that where we're going to be navigating towards, is just having that combination of external observation and internal maybe trend analysis? Do you see that kind of in the future here?
I mean, possibly. It's always a case of no one has perfect data. You know, I've worked in-house. I've worked with a lot of companies trying to like model stuff. And I've seen like crazy attribution where people are claiming like 4.5 times the amount of revenue the company actually makes. Everyone has imperfect data, and you just have to kind of work with what you've got. You know, access to more data sets helps clean things up and kind of confirm you're making the right decisions. But in the end, you just kind of have to go with what the data shows you no matter what, because the data will never be perfect. And as Barry said, it's getting worse. It's getting a lot worse fast.
No, it really is. It really is. And just to compound that, Google also is not showing query data to advertisers as well. Even the terms with clicks, referring to them as not significant data from Google Ads. I quote, "We are updating the search terms to report to only include terms that were searched by a significant number of users," quote unquote. As a result, you may see fewer terms in the report going forward. So here's the deal. They took the terms out of Google Analytics. They've taken the terms away from advertisers of terms that actually have clicks. And
I'm sure the advertisers are not happy about that.
Oh man, they're losing their shit, man. They really are. And now we have Google Search Console, which was told to us being as privacy concerns that we would be able to navigate by that. And now we're seeing 50% removed. Our next steps of SEO performance really can't be reliant on Google. We have to look at other third-party tools to be able to steer. It's disappointing to say the least, but in the world of privacy concerns, or even inferred privacy concerns, we're kind of going blind here. And it's disconcerting to say the least. There's some great tools out there. Ahrefs is certainly a great tool. SERPstat, SEMrush, Scrapey is an AI-based web tool. Moz, SimilarWeb, all these different things can give you kind of a triangulation of performance. But whenever you can't get it from the horse's mouth, we're left empty-handed. So, final thoughts about this discrepancy. You've hypothesized it for before, and now you've finally kind of proven it just with this data sample. What are your final thoughts on this, man?
I'm just curious if it's going to get worse. I wish someone had run a bigger study sooner, because like I've seen this issue for years, but I have access to like 10 sites or whatever, and even then it would range from like 15 to like 85% difference. Mm-hmm. And I wish we had data from years ago to see like, is this actually getting worse, or this is just how it's always been? Right. And it's kind of fascinating, because in a lot of cases, people consider that Search Console data as first party data when it's from Google, but it's from Google and it's about your site and they're giving you the data. So like you really trust that data. But I think this has kind of opened people's eyes to say like that actually is third-party data, and they're not really giving us everything.
Yep.
And now we have to live in a world where that is the case, but at least we can make better decisions knowing the limitations of that data.
Yeah. And the final compounding thing is that Google Analytics 4 is modeled towards not sessions, is modeled towards users. So we're even losing more and more of what we saw from a behavior standpoint. Now it's drilling down to the user and going deeper into how they're interacting with the website, which is fantastic, but we're losing that visibility. So on top of it, year over year data is not going to match up at all from old UA Google Analytics 3 to GA4. So we're in a world of hurt. I mean,
GA4 is even being like banned in countries now. They're like, no, you can't use that. And like, I see a potential future where unless you are like self-hosting an analytics or just using log file data,
there it is. Yeah.
Like it may not, analytics, the way that we know it will not exist in a few years. Too many people will crack down on this privacy.
Or we can go back to those really cool counters, which just show some numbers like an odometer. That's it. Can't wait.
We got a hit counter on every page. Oh, that's a depressing thought. Thanks so much for that, Jake. Appreciate it. All right. Well, thank you for the study, and thanks Ahrefs for the study to actually dive into this. Maybe not. Maybe we shouldn't thank you because, man, you just pulled the curtain away, showing literally nothing that we can see inside of Google, and maybe we just needed to be lulled into a sense of confidence because. Inside of our own organization, as soon as we started to dig through it, it's like, oh my God, all right. But now we've got to put together an entire new set of parameters to be able to guide our SEO from. So thank you for doing that, and we certainly appreciate your continued focus on that. And let us know if you have any other studies or any other discovery, because we certainly want to champion that in front of our audience of digital marketers. What's in the future for Ahrefs? What else are they going to be doing right now?
I mean, we're focused on the tool. We're launching stuff left and right now.
Yeah,
actually.
you are.
I mean, there's some really cool stuff. There's a new chart type that I don't even think we've announced yet, but it's so cool, like year over year. So you see like the yearly growth, and with the trended data, the monthly search volume, it has trends. So you can see like, oh, a flower shop Mother's Day sale, like every year, cool. Big spike, and tons and tons of cool stuff.
You got a new calendar chart as well from a keyword filtering. You can actually see the growth of keywords over the calendar days, right?
Is it keywords that are there right now? I know it literally just launched today, so good spot. I don't know what's in there yet. We're going to have the keywords, we're going to have pages, and we're going to have link data all in that. And I think it's one of the three that launched. I'm not really sure which, honestly.
Fantastic. Yeah.
And we have a search engine, which is fun.
And you got, you got a brand new search engine.
Yep.com.
Check out yip.com. And that was a huge investment for you guys. That was $60 million and 3 years of effort to be able to create a new search engine. Yeah. We probably should have mentioned that a little bit earlier, but yeah, that's a big effort. What's the industry's feedback on that so far?
I think kind of mixed. I think people are worried that we are losing focus on the search tool and spending efforts on that. But it's not really the case because a lot of the infrastructure is shared. So it's giving us more space to expand. And then like we've got a bunch of data scientists now. So like things we're building for the search engine will carry over into Ahrefs, which is going to be awesome. And it's not like we took anyone off of the Ahrefs product and like put them on Yep. Like it's mostly, okay, we took a couple people, but it's mostly like a new dedicated team is working on that. But everyone that was working on Ahrefs mostly is still focused on Ahrefs.
So can Yep give us a search console tool that will have all the data?
More than likely.
Okay. I won't quote you.
I'm not going to promise 1,000% yes, because again, like at a certain size, maybe we can't even return that data in a reasonable amount of time from a database. So we'll try. And do the best we can.
I saw some pictures of the server rooms down in Singapore where they've got stacks and stacks of machines there, rivaling Google and their data centers. So kudos on that. That's a huge endeavor. Fantastic, man. Well, keep up the good work. We want to make sure our listeners track you down on Twitter at Patrick Stox. That's Stox. You can also find him on Facebook at Patrick Stox and LinkedIn at Patrick Stox. Any final words for our search optimization audience out there that are incredibly disappointed right now?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was to say I'm sorry.
No worries. Well, I mean, hey, we gotta have truth where we can get it, right? And now we got to know how to navigate with certain areas that are just off limits to us, unfortunately. Thanks so much for your time today, Patrick. Truly do appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me.
You're more than welcome. More than welcome. Hey, don't forget to like and subscribe to Edge of the Web on YouTube. And if you're really feeling up to it today, give us a quick review at ratethispodcast.com/edge. Thanks to all of our sponsors. Be sure to connect with them and let them know you heard them on this show. Be sure to check out all the must-see videos over at edgeofthewebradio.com. That's edgeofthewebradio.com. From all of us over at Edge and Site, stay safe, stay well, and do not be a piece of cyber driftwood. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.